Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. My dear students, in our last lecture, we talked about qualities and concerns for good writers. We discussed a few points for your recapitulation. We talked about writers as communicators. Second point, we talked about writers and their personalities. The third one, readers and their personalities. And fourth one, and very important one, writers and contexts. Writers should be writers should be sensitive, to non-sensitive and sensitive contexts. And finally, then we talked about the writing purposes. Today, we'll go ahead with a few more points which I believe need our attention also. Let's talk about our next point, that writers, they should be considerate enough to understand and analyze the needs of their readers. So one good advice for the would-be writers is that be very considerate. You can be self-centered. That's fine, no problem. But I would advise you that don't be self-focused. That's a sin, frankly speaking. Self-centered, fine. Yes, you have your whole background there. You have your all, achievements there. Fine, you can be self-centered. And you can stand for, there's no problem for that. But don't be, self-focused. So, where the focus should be? Interesting question. The focus has to be on the readers. Be reader-focused. Be reader-oriented. Don't be self-oriented. Be reader-oriented. By this I mean that you should know that what are your readers' needs. Of course, you are writing for them. I mean, especially in journalistic writing or in the world of journalism, writers, very frankly speaking, don't write for themselves, actually. They write for others. They have something to tell, and they tell through highly persuasive manner, in terms of their expression, I mean to say, in terms of their writing, I mean to say. So, writers are supposed to be considerate enough to understand the needs of their readers. They should know that there are, generally speaking, two types of, readers. One, which is, let's say, the one who is, details conscious. Other one who has got nothing to do with the details. We call these two writers as one who is a skeptic and the other one who is a skimmer. Now, skeptic is the one, skeptic reader, I mean to say, is the one who is, who is interested in details. Why? Perhaps he has some doubts. The goggles which he has put on, perhaps through which he sees, perhaps he needs to dig deep and deeper, into the matter. So he needs more and more to read. And it's difficult sometimes to satisfy the needs of, such readers. So skeptics are those who see things with a negative eye. They say no, and then from no, slowly they move towards yes. Of course, through the argumentation of the writer. Okay, now, who are skimmers? Well, skimmers are those who are not details conscious. They don't want details. What they want? They want very to-the-point information. I would say they run miles away from, the, dug up, things. They want very concise, very compact, information, and this is how they satisfy themselves. So if you take a look of newspapers, for example, headlines, serve the purpose of, what do you think, skeptics or skimmers? I'm asking you this question. I repeat, what do you think? Newspapers, headlines, they serve the purpose of skeptics or skimmers? Take your time, think about, and the topic sentences in the body of the news, again I ask this question, they serve the purpose of or serve the needs of skimmers or skeptics. And then in-depth details, they serve whose needs? Ask yourself these questions. Obviously, if, of course, headline is based on the main idea. Topic sentences, main idea. And then you have the body of the news, details. The, writers, they satisfy the thirst of the skeptics. So headlines and the topic sentences, as perhaps you also answered the way I'm going to talk about, yes, they serve the needs of skimmers. And then the details, skeptics. So this is how things are knitted in the newspapers as well. Then you have in articles, again, topic, sentences, and then in-depth details. Editorials, topic, sentences, then in-depth, details. Features, same way. Things are built, satisfying the needs of the both types of readers. So, from this, I would say a good writer is the one who takes care of the needs of the both readers, skimmers also and skeptics also. One more important point. That important point is that, look here, we share information, right? Information can take different treatment. I mean to say, WH, take the example. Who, what, when, where, why, and how, okay? Information can be in the form of what, or it can be in the form of where, when, okay? Who. Now, there are two more W and H. Why and third one is how. Now, what is why? I'm not telling you the others because, fine, I mean, who, okay, actors, where, the whereabouts, when, the dates, what, fine, what is what? What is the purpose, or you can say the topic, or you can say the bottom line. Now, these two are really, really, really important to know, and the use also. Why? Now, why is what? Why is the reasoning, the logic, the pragmatics involved. There, by the use of why, very easily you can convince. If not convince, at least you can try to convince through some reasonable, grounds. And how, of course, is the process. How things from A moves down to Z, or from Z up to A, that, stuff. So from this, understanding, 3 points I would like to discuss with you when we talk about writers should be considerate, for the readers. Information, examination, and analysis. Information can be just, bits and pieces. Some bits and pieces of A, some bits and pieces of B, some bits and pieces of C put together. Okay. Now, what's examination? Examination means actually the compare and the contrast of all these bits to help the writer, conclude something. And for the readers, when he reads the comparison and the contrast of all these bits, what happens? He reaches somewhere at the conclusion. And what's next? Analysis. What's analysis? Analysis is results taken out from this information based on that comparison and contrast made in examinative stage. Now, look here. Some readers will need just the bits and pieces of that information. They don't need any comparison and contrast or analysis. And some readers will need more than that information. They would need some comparison and contrast made by the writers. And some would need, not only comparison and contrast, but some, conclusions, some pieces of advice, some reaching points, some, made up, ready-made opinions, word for the mouth, they need from the writer. So this is how, writer moves from skimmers to skeptics. Of course, skimmers will need the basic information. Complete, of course. And then, skimmers, you can say, they would be needing examinated and analyzed, frankly speaking, information. So this is how, writer has to be very careful about the needs of his readers if he really wants to convince them, or if he really wants to serve the purpose, or he wants to satisfy, their thirst. And so from here, we learned that the word completion is also relative. The word completion for skimmers is different, for skeptics is different. And of course, it's not writer who decides what's complete. Let me tell you this also. Writers got nothing to do with what is complete. It's the reader who decides what is complete for them. For skimmers, complete, you've just seen is different. For skeptics, complete, the word complete meanings are, of course, different. And writer has to be very, very careful. Now, to further elaborate this point, I would like to show you one example. Over there, you would see that how these two attitudes, frankly speaking, I mean, this skimmers and the skeptics attitude, like, is being compared, and see how, writers are, preparing messages for them. But please keep in mind, do not be misguided by this point that information, when you are printing something in newspaper, for example, so as I have said, told you before, that you have to, in one, you have to, satisfy the needs of the both, right? So let's take a look. As you can see, we do not have enough fuel to reach Portland. When we land at Sioux City, we hope to take on more fuel, which will take about an hour. I repeat, we do not have enough fuel to reach Portland. When we land at Sioux City, we hope to take on more fuel, which will take about an hour. If you carefully analyze this message perhaps answers you what, it's answering you where, it's answering, of course, who the actors involved, of course. But two very important WH, it is not answering why, and it is not answering how. So when comes the question of, be considerate in mind, so we then, realize that perhaps this message is really incomplete, because it does not tell us, why you people are diverting from, let's say, B to C. This message does not give that reason. So maybe skeptics, of course, they will be in trouble reading this message. Skimmers find, like, they can easily understand, the message, because the bottom line is very much there. Now, on your screen, if you see the second message, we are encountering 90-mile-an-hour headwinds. This wind and our full load means that we are using more fuel than usual. Consequently, we are diverting to Sioux City, North Dakota, to top up the fuel tanks as a safety precaution. Refueling in Sioux City will take about an hour. I apologize for the unavoidable delay. If I read it again, we are encountering 90-mile-an-hour headwinds. Now take a look at this sentence. We are encountering 90-mile-an-hour headwinds. This is reason. This wind and our full load means that we are using more fuel than usual. Look how blame is being, shifted. Consequently, we are diverting to Sioux City. Now, these are the results. To top up the fuel tanks as a safety precaution. Now, look at the word choice, safety precaution. Now, readers' worries all gone, that no problem, this is just, a precautionary step. Refueling in Sioux City will take about an hour. Okay, the time factor has been given. I apologize for the unavoidable delay. Now, this is something, look at the word choice again, unavoidable. That this is not their fault, actually. So what actually you saw the both messages? The first message wasn't giving any logic, wasn't giving any reason, no pragmatics. And probably after reading message number 1, most of the passengers perhaps would, translate it in such a way that as if we are all going to die. Whereas the second message, gives a complete look of the matter. It takes care of the needs of the both, skimmers and skeptics. It gives you logic, it gives you all possible pragmatics. An important thing, the second message keeps the goodwill intact as well. When they, share facts with you. So this is how they say, well, this is not our fault. Actually, this is something unavoidable. So this is how, message is prepared, keeping the reader's need in mind. Look here. Information into knowledge into education. Understand this equation also, because we are to deal with it, in the coming days. Information, fine. I tell you something, you, listen to it. Okay, fine. Possibility is that you understand it or you don't. If our experience is shared one, you'll at once understand. If our experience is not shared one, of course, you'll be confused. Or there'll be a big sign of question in air that, what does it mean? Well, that's what actually information stuff is. Now, what's knowledge? Knowledge means when you multiply two things. Number one, information plus experiment. Look, you can teach a child that this is fire. I can teach, you can teach. We can tell fire. Look, fire is what? It's a picture. It's right there. You can say, hey, this is fire. He can take a look of fire. Understand, okay, fine, this is fire. Look at the word association. Word and image associated. Okay, fine. This is how human beings actually learn. You cannot teach a child that it burns. Why? Think about it. Yes, when we teach our child that fire, as I told you before, that word and image both stored in mind, understood. But where is the image of the word burn? No matter what you do, spend days and night with that child, he'll not understand what actually we mean by it burns. Yes, there is one possibility. Someday, that child touches anything hot, or let's say the flame. That day he would realize that, okay, fine, this is what burning is. This is what the word burn is. How? Look. Fire, image, fine. No, the word burn and image, or experience, or call it experiment, learned. So it means human beings need to reach the point of knowledge more than information. All right. Now, what happens next? Tomorrow, ask that child, come, touch it again. He would say, oh, come on, I'll not. Why? Because now he knows, okay, fine, fire, understand, burning, what that burn stuff is. He knows now, he'll not. So, see the change in his behavior. See the change in his behavior that has occurred. Now, that change in his behavior and in future not touching the flame means education. So, what now will be a good message? A good message will be the one which contains all the three elements. Elements of information, elements of knowledge, elements of education. If you really want to affect the behavior of your readers, you have to follow these three steps. Following these three steps will, of course, satisfy the needs of the both types of readers. Skimmers and skeptics both. Information, fine for the skimmer. The remaining two elements for the skeptics. So this is how, a writer influences behavior. And at times we say that writer is an influencer of change also. Okay, now from here, let's move towards our next point, which is investigation. Writers are supposed to be highly investigative. And of course, there is one huge part of journalistic writing we call investigative reporting. He has to, he has to have, this ability to dig out information, for his readers. From here, we can also talk about researching the qualities of, the ability to research, things. Like they say, who is a researcher? The one who, makes an inch-size hole in the ground and keeps digging miles down. So this is how, they, dig information out for the, readers. To be investigative, we need to have, or we need to take the help of 6 friends once again. Those 6 friends, as I mentioned before, but here in different context. Again, those 6 friends, take a look, are, number 1, who. Who means who is your primary and who is your secondary reader. Primary and secondary. Who is your primary and secondary means who enjoys the primary focus of the writer and who enjoys the secondary focus of the writer. Comes next, what. Here, what means the same thing. The purpose of your writing. What you want to say. What's the purpose behind? You want to, for your interest, you want to inform, you want to educate, you want to entertain, you want to persuade, you want to, bring changes in your reader's life and whatnot. So, who and then what. Number 3, where. Now here, where means the whereabouts of your readers, which is very important. You are writing for those who live in the hills or for those who live seaside, by the seaside. You live for those, or you write for those who live in villages or who live in, cities. You're writing for central people or you're writing for those who are enjoying privileges. Find out what's your focus. Which community of people you're focusing, find out. Because different people belonging to different communities have different needs for information. Maybe for those like who live in, privileged, parts or, salubrious parts of the, society or community, perhaps they need highly stylish information. Maybe a word will be, more than enough for them. No details, just a word in style, and they understand the whole, crux of the matter. Those who live maybe in the less privileged parts over there, perhaps you really need to, talk about the details, very much details. Don't forget here Dr. Maslow's those 5 important points when he talks about physical and psychological, physiological and psychological needs, of his of the readers, of the people. Now, these needs are different in different parts of the society. What do you think? People who live in the developed areas or people who live in the underdeveloped areas, they both have different. Take it this way, people, of different, this financial status, for example, they have different physiological and psychological needs. So you have to be very careful who you're addressing, actually, to be more effective. Otherwise, at times people don't care, but to be more effective and meaningful, to talk about the issues of change, to talk about the issues of behavior. You got to take care of these things. Next point is when. The time factor. Take care of it. When is the right time to let your message reach your readers? When they are fully available. In, communication classes, we do, discuss things of, some, what we call, communication barriers. And one very, I would say, important barrier, psychological noise. Well, by the way, barriers are like, read as noises in your communication. So, psychological noise. What's psychological noise? Psychological noise is the availability of your reader or your your listener. Find out when he is fresh and available, and you let your message reach him. Understanding will be there very much. So time factor is, of course, very, very important. The next point is why and how. Again, the same 2 points. Why? What reasons are behind your writing? What logic or rationale actually, you are, introducing in your writing? And how your writing is going to appeal to the reader. What's special in your writing that reader will enjoy reading? What special is in your writing that reader does not know, so he'll be interested? What special is in your writing which could at once grab the attention of your reader? What's that? If it is, wow. If not, come on. How come you can, convince, or you can, bring about that change thing we are talking about, in the readers? Let's see our next point. Again, I would say is important. Dream and reality. Keep one important thing in your mind. Whatever I'm writing or whatever I'm speaking, I'm very clear about it. But I'll make a serious mistake if I assume that same way my listeners or my readers will be clear. This assumption kills the writers. It's a big sin for the writers when they start assuming that if I know, if I'm clear, same way, my readers will be. Wrong. Big error. Don't do that. This is dream. Reality is different. Reality is what? That if I'm clear, I have to make special arrangements. I have to adopt special measures to, in sequence and progression, step by step, make that understanding happen with the reader. Like if you remember, or if you can, if you probably have heard of the swimmers. I mean, the trainer, who teaches swimming, swimming coach, take it this way, his desperation. When he fails in, teaching or training, guys on swimming, so in desperation, he utters one sentence, "Look, it's so easy. If I can swim, why can't you? Look, I swim this way, follow me the same way you do, and why can't you?" I mean, that desperation thing, of course, is because of assumptive behavior. Don't do that. Now, reality is what? Reality is quite on the other side of the table. What's that? Take a look. I'll show you 4 points, which actually are the points which will help you to read or understand your reader? Let's take a look. Point number 1, social contact. Social contact here I mean writer and the reader, or the people who are communicating. They should be in touch with each other. They should be in contact with each other. They should know who is a reader, who is a writer. They should know each other, number 1. Number 2, common medium. Both readers and writers should share common language or means of communication. If my language is different from your language, or if the level of my language is lower or higher compared with your language, if the words which I'm using are not that way formal or informal, that will be a problem. So writer and reader both should know each other. Writer should ask rather himself a question that what level of language my readers can easily understand. It shouldn't be pompous, nor it should be, substandard. Especially for writing, even it shouldn't be, colloquial. It has to be standard form of grammar, syntax, and, vocabulary, as we just discussed in our previous lecture. So language has to be very common. Both should enjoy the same level. And one more thing, please keep in mind that writer is nobody to choose language. Writer's language choices are dictated by the language, or you can say the linguistic abilities of the readers, not writer. Writer can be like, oh my God, he may have, a wonderful stock of, words, and huge, and, lots and lots of, varieties of structures. No use. Why? Because he's writing for others. So the good thing is, write in the language of others. Ask yourself what words they can understand, what structures they can understand. So use that language which is of your readers. Point number 3, transmission. Transmission means message has to be imparted clearly. As I mentioned before, sending is not receiving. You have to make this sending receiving through efforts, through good design of your language. And the last point is understanding. It means message has to be received, understood, and interpreted, as you can see written on the slide. Now, to make your understanding rather more concrete, I should like to give you one more example, and then please try to relate these 4 points with this example. Now, these points are like social contact, common medium, transmission, and understanding. Let's see the same 4 points in this example. As you can see on your screens, there are 2 writers and readers, plumber and specialist. If these 2 are in each other's social contact, of course, both can understand each other, that what, the status or the educational level, of plumber is, and specialist should be able to understand, plumber's linguistic abilities, and accordingly he should design, his message. If we go through the whole thing, then you can perhaps understand that the difference between social contact and then jumping down to understanding, how it has to be bridged over. Let's take a look. Plumber, he wrote, "Sir, HCl is good for cleaning out clogged drains." Well, it's a simple proposition, plumber gave. Specialist. Now take a look of specialist language. and specialist is addressing the plumber. And of course, there's a huge difference of educational level. The efficiency of HCl is indisputable, but the corrosive residue is incompatible with metallic permanence. Plumber, he misunderstood and rewrote, "Oh, thank you very much for appreciation." Specialist re-stressed, "Oh, come on, we cannot assume responsibility for the production of toxic and noxious residue with hydrochloric acid and suggest you use an alternative procedure." Plumber, he perhaps understood that another appreciation from the specialist, and he said, "Thank you very much once again." And specialist in desperation wrote, "Do not use HCl, it eats hell out of the pipes." Now, did you see that from A to Z, communication was a failure? Perhaps specialist did not realize what message should be appropriate and sufficient for his, reader. And because of not assessing the, or take it this way, because of not following these 4 points, not knowing or not being in the social context, not knowing what language level he can understand, just simply sending on messages and messages. Specialist was actually making that very serious mistake, that he was trying technical phraseology which only he can understand. Plumber, of course, can't. He's a non-technical person. Had I been at his place, I would have, reacted the same way. So it was the job of the specialist to understand what language will be suitable to send his readings in. So that was, one serious mistake. So please keep in mind that sending and receiving is not always equal. Sender, or you take it this way, writer, has to ask himself, these reality components, and then, write messages, and then accordingly, of course, the level of understanding will be higher, pretty higher. Now, let's move to our next point, which is another, I would say, crucial one. You can see on your screen, no internal biases and shape perceptions. Now, my dear students, what are biases? Biases, very simply speaking, your likes and your dislikes, your priorities. Well, these are your biases. Your choices are your biases. And what are perceptions? Well, perceptions are actually, if I name here McLuhan, what he said actually, that everybody's got his own set of goggles through which he sees the world. So these are your perceptions. In the words of psychology, they say every child or everybody is born with 3 fears. Fear of reproduction, fear of space, and fear of food. If I put these 3 in appropriate order, then understand it this way: fear of food, space, and reproduction. Now, these 3 fears, what they do? These 3 fears set up for you a paradigm. Paradigm is what? Paradigm is a window through which we see. When we see through that window, of course, ideas in our mind, that now window is unique. Why? Because my fear of food, my fear of space, my fear of reproduction is different. Yours are different. If I have, like, my amount of fear is less and your amount of fear is more, now you can see very different, windows will be there around me and around you. That's why they say 2 plus 2 for a hungry man is equal to 4 pieces of bread. What is that? Same, like, he has no food, he has no space. Accordingly, like, that window is around him, and that you can take it, you can read that window as goggles. Through those window, through those goggles, or through that paradigm, he's going to see things around. And ideas into, actions into habits into character, So this is how the whole, that human being, different from each other, everybody distinct, unique from each other is, made. And perceptions are, built. So, how we correct people's biases and people's, these perceptions. Of course, we cannot correct the way we can correct someone's language, grammar, or vocabulary. Here in this case, it's a sensitive issue because nobody is there to listen from you that, hey, I'm there to correct you, you're wrong. Nobody's going to allow you, even if one knows that I'm wrong, but nobody in this world wants to listen to this point that, hey, I'm wrong, he's right, and he's there to correct me? No, come on, no way. So what to do? Writers, they are highly tactful, supposed to be very tactful in this case. What they do actually, they position the perceptions. Don't correct perception because it's not easy. You know why it's not easy? You'll have to go back to his fears. Can you correct those fears? Can you make him take rebirth? Of course you can't. To how many people you can give space and food? You can't. So what to do? What to do? Very simple. Position. I mean, take the example of this hand, for example. If I ask you, come on, describe this hand, and I'll also describe, our description will be quite contradictory. You will say, well, it's firm, smooth, with some lines. Perhaps Pomis will be very much interested in. There are, tips also, okay? I'll say, come on, fool you are. It's wrinkly, it's knuckly, there are hair, nails, it's brown in color. And we both are right. We both are correct. We both are describing the same hand, but our position is wrong. I mean, your position is towards, my position is. So if I want to make you understand what I should do, well, I should ask you that please come at my place and I'll go at your place and we'll say to each other, oh, we both are right. We both were describing the same thing. So this is how writers, when they share facts and figures, when their writing is factual, stat when they discuss, they very easily make their point. They very easily, can position, not knowing of the readers to full knowing. This is how they can do. So this is how you can, shape people's biases. You can shape people's, perceptions. Otherwise, there is no other way out. So writers share facts. Writers share figures. Writers share stat. Writers talk about the ground realities. They don't talk about something which is not tangible to convince others. If that's not possible, yes, what they do is, they try to position them. And yes, that's the work of persuasion, actually. So my next point is, of course, persuasion. Writers are supposed to be highly persuasive in their approach. If you want to understand what is persuasion, bring in your mind making candle. How you make candle? Of course, you make candle by how? By melting it. And then you mold it. For example, I give you one candle and one, iron bar. And I ask you, come on, mold. And this is how writers mold readers. Take the same example here. Mold iron bar and mold candle. I mean, can I mold iron bar with my hands? Or can you? Of course not. But can you mold candle? Of course, yes, you can. Yes, I can. What's actually the stuff is? The stuff is that resistance. Know the resistance of iron bar. Know the resistance of candle. And after knowing the resistance, you can apply the required force. And then, you can break it. So how you make candles? You melt it. You mold it. You harden it. And then you ignite. Exactly the same way, writers, they know the resistance level of their readers. Resistance level is actually the change, the point where readers can easily change. So he learns the resistance of their readers, and knowing the resistance, he molds. And then he hardens, and then he ignites. This is how, he influences the behavior of others. And of course, I believe persuasive writing is the, I would say, the real, acid test for, I believe, every writer or speaker. So with this, well, there are lots of, other points as well that writers, should be clear also. They should be concise also. They should be correct also. I mean, authenticity, I'm talking about, it should be coherent also, quite organized as well. And top it all, a writer should be, the way we say, be yourself. So the writers should be, themselves, what they want for themselves, the same way they should offer for the readers. Well, we can talk, a lot on this subject, but I believe in today's lecture, we tried to understand what qualities you as writers and everybody as a writer, needs, and what concerns are there, and how we can, understand our readers, because that is our focal point, okay? And this is how, things are in the field of writing. In my next lecture, I'll talk about what is good writing. We have talked about what is a good writer. Next will be what is good writing, the characteristics of good writing. With this, take care of yourself and each other. See you next time. Bye-bye.